Today, we are going to unpack some of the most common terms you will hear in programming. Words like API, Git, and Backend. I will explain what they are, what they are used for, and why you should care. Whether you are just starting or you would want to sound smarter in your next tech meeting, this is for you. Let's dive in. Alright, first up, what is API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. I know, right? It sounds intense, but it is basically a way two programs interact with each other. For example, when your weather application shows you or gets you the weather forecast for today, it is not the weather application that does all the calculations by itself. So this is what happens. So your weather app or your forecast application would send a request to an API, which is Application Programming Interface, to make sure that it gets the information and displays the information to you. Simple. So normally, in situations where you have two different softwares being able to communicate with each other, that is what we call as what? API. So just take it this way. Like you get to the restaurant, we have waiters there. They get to you, you give them your request, or you even get to them, you give them your request. They get to the kitchen, they place your request that this table number ABC wants maybe fried rice with chicken and maybe vanilla or any other thing as described. Then the kitchen will have it made ready and the waiters will get it back to you. That is how, in simple terms, API works. I hope you understand it by now. Good. Let's then move to the next word. Now, you normally hear a lot about front end and back end. Let's dive quick into it. This is what it means. Front end is basically what users see and interact with. You enter a website, you open an application. Let's use Facebook for instance. You need to log in, right? You type in your password, you type in your email. Then you see a button that says login, right? That is the front end, okay? The visual part of an application that makes it very possible for a user to interact with the application. That is what we mean by front end. Now let's get to the back end. The back end is the unseen part of an application or a website or whatever it is in programming. Yes. So this time after you are done typing in your email, your password, a system would have to check and see whether the password is in sync with the data stored already. The system would have to also store your information. The system would have to check the time that you logged in order to log that very time or have a timestamp of when exactly that you logged in. That is where the backend magic what happens. So basically the front end is what we see and the back end is the logic that happens behind the scene, making sure that the front end is able to interact with the other side of the software for the user to be able to get what they want. That is basically about front end and back end. Moving on, let's get to Git and probably GitHub. I know you've been hearing of Git or probably GitHub, from somewhere, or you've come across it on social media. These are tools for version control. So assuming that I am developing a software for a particular company or organization, then I've written the first phase of the software being the front end. I've moved on to developing a database schema being the database aspect. Then I've moved to the back end. Maybe I am using a language like PHP to write all the logics to be able to communicate with the database and the front end for user to get what they want. Then at the end of the day, I've gotten to a particular point. Maybe I'm done with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Git will help you save all the versions. Okay, so every point where you get saves it. So should in case you get a problem along the line, you can always reverse back to a particular stage, okay, then rework on the new stage again. Unlike you write an entire code, there has been times that it happens to most developers. Okay, back in the days I used to go through those things. I'll write an entire code, then I get bugs. At the end of the day, I go through several times. I don't know if you've ever, been in such problem before. There has been times I was writing code way back, I get stuck. I try all ways out, and the bug moves from 1 to 3, count up, or 100, and I feel like I don't have anything doing again. The best I can do is to clear off the entire project. Delete it, then restart the project itself again. But with Git, it saves the version. Okay, so you are here, you are there, you move to the next phase, you'll be able to save every phase of the work, so that afterwards, should in case an issue or a problem happens along the line, you can always revert back, then start working out from there. So that is basically Git, right? GitHub, in other way, is just like Dropbox for code. Okay, it helps you share, store, and collaborate on code with other developers or other people. Okay, and it is best and super useful, especially when working with a team. A group of developers. GitHub is best, as you can collaborate, share, then work on a single project. Okay, so that is GitHub, and just like the Git is the version aspect of it, like I explained earlier. Finally, let's look at database. Database is basically a place where your application stores its data, user information, messages, pictures, posts, whatever. It is being stored in the database. So when you go on Facebook, you log in, your password is being stored in the database. Okay, then you start uploading content, being pictures, videos, links. All these things are being saved in the database. And what the database helps is always to make sure that your files are stored and kept safely, so that anytime you need it, you can retrieve it. So it's a way that helps softwares saves information. So after you got your front end, your back end, you need a database to interact. Okay, these three would have to interact and make sure that every logic's data being taken or input are being stored. Okay, and whenever that input is being needed, your software can fetch back those information for you. So we have databases like SQL, MongoDB, and others. These are all database languages that you can learn. So there you go. We've learned about API, front end and back end, and at the same time database. We also learned about Git and GitHub. These are just the tip of the iceberg, but understanding this will give you a very strong foundation. Let me know in the comment section which tech word confuses you most. And don't forget to like this very video, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thank you so much for watching my video. Until we meet again, bye.